Hello, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Today is Saturday, July 15th. Hope everyone had a good first half break. I know we did. We're going to be talking about some players that we believe can bounce back that did not get off to, you can't really call it a start anymore because it's been over half of the season, but who had disappointing first halves that we believe can bounce back. But first, we're going to get into some headlines. I'm with my buddy Ryan Boyer, by the way. I can't believe I almost forgot to introduce you, Ryan. I'm so sorry about that. Maybe it's because I was so distracted by the fact that I'm disappointed by this news with Shane Bieber going to have an MRI for, I believe, forearm irritation, Ryan. This isn't good.
I thought you were going to say disappointed that you're not getting your usual dose of Mr. Drew Silva.
Oh, yeah. No, that's
Drew's at last check was in the ocean, and sounds like quite literally he got thrown overboard into the ocean or close to it anyway.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, but yeah, a much earned and much needed vacay for Mr. Silva. So I'm filling in for him today, and we'll be back with you tomorrow as well with my good buddy, Mr. Crawford.
Yes, sir.
Shane Bieber, yeah. Forearm irritation, which evidently has been bothering him for at least a couple starts. He's had trouble bouncing back after those starts. I don't know about you, Chris. Like, I've kind of been waiting for the other shoe to drop with Bieber, I guess. I mean, while the performance on the whole has been okay, there have been the warning signs have been flashing and been very hard to miss.
Sure.
Velocity's down. Strikeouts are way down. I didn't necessarily expect that he was hurt. I was just worried that the performance might kind of start to slide. But we'll see what the MRI says. Logan Allen sounds like who didn't really deserve to get sent back down in the first place, by the way.
Right.
Sounds like he's going to come up to replace Bieber in the rotation. I don't think they've put Bieber in the IL yet. I think they're kind of waiting on that. Seems like maybe a formality, or maybe hopefully he's only going to miss one start, but forearms, never a good thing. If he's been pitching with it for a little bit now, maybe it's just like kind of a fatigue kind of thing. I don't know, but I guess we're going to find out more. Was the MRI scheduled for today? I believe. Maybe we'll find out more.
Just got announced 3 minutes ago that Mr. Bieber has been placed on the DIL. There is no specific word on his diagnosis, according to the wonderful Mandy Bell of MLB.com. Michael Kelly has been recalled from AAA Columbus in his place. That's
Michael
the great
Kelly,
thing about
good
doing
actor.
these.
Good character actor.
Yes, he is, but not somebody that you're adding in fantasy because he won't have a fantasy relevant role, and not really good enough even if he was to have a fantasy relevant role. But yeah, that just broke, and that's the nice thing about doing a live show and having we have our issues with Twitter, Ryan, but it is kind of nice that we can just look something up like this real quick. But yes, it is now confirmed that Shane Bieber is headed to the 15-day injured list, but we'll have to wait and see on the specific diagnosis.
Okay, well, that clears it up somewhat. Not really.
Yes.
I guess, it's kind of nice, actually. Those who are rostering Bieber can use that IL spot, not have to just stick him on the bench and cross your fingers. But sounds like we'll get more news soon, what exactly the MRI said. But yeah, Logan Allen, I think, is probably worth picking back up, at least in deeper formats.
I would say so.
I believe he'll get the Pirates. Pretty good matchup. His first start back in the majors, so a decent streaming option for next week.
Absolutely, yeah. The big thing here, I think, is that it pretty much eliminates the chance for Bieber to be a trade guy. He probably wasn't going to get moved anyway, since every week I have to complain about this, but that division is just unfathomably bad,
Yeah.
and somebody's going to win that division, winning 83 games, and probably win the World Series. And I'm ready for it. Take me down.
Their depth has taken a hit too with McKenzie.
Yes,
So they can't necessarily afford to
that's
trade a guy like
100%
Bieber
right.
anyway. So
Yeah.
So that basically eliminates any possibility of that happening.
And unfortunately, we've got another injury update, and unfortunately, we have had to do injury updates on this guy. It seems like every week as well. Anthony Rendon going back on the injured list, Ryan. I kind of feel. I don't kind of feel bad for him. I feel bad for him because I think Anthony Rendon probably would prefer to be playing baseball right now, Ryan, but he just can't stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed relatively minor when the injury happened. They rested him for, I think maybe 1 or 2 games before the All-Star break. The Angels had an off day Sunday. I don't really know what that was about, but they had I think maybe just 1 game after he fouled the ball off his shin.
Mm-hmm.
But they put him on the IL yesterday. I think the diagnosis was just a shin contusion.
Yep.
So maybe a bone bruise, that can be pretty painful. Maybe that was a more accurate description of what he's dealing with. But obviously, as much time as you mentioned, as Anthony Rendon has missed, he's going to be playing through that if he could, I would think. So, but should be a relatively short absence, I would think. Luis Rengifo started at third base yesterday. They did promote Trey Cabbage yesterday. He can play first base if they want to put Mike Moustakas over at third, or just put Mike Moustakas on the bench, which is probably where he belongs. But Trey Cabbage can fill in at first base or in the outfield, and he has had a monster year at AAA Salt Lake. Already went 2020 before he was called up. Tons of strikeouts. There's a lot of swing and miss there, but there's also a lot of power and some speed. I think he's an interesting pickup in deeper leagues. We should mention that I know we talked about him last week as well, but Joe Adele, we kind of hinted that he was probably headed to the IL, and he was indeed also placed on the IL. So that opens up potentially more playing time for a guy like Cabbage as well. And Taylor Ward was back, hit a home run yesterday. Mickey Moniak is going to get probably everyday playing time. He's probably even going to play against lefties now, I would think. I don't really know who else they're going to be using out there. But yeah, Anthony Rendon, he's really hit pretty well when healthy this year. The power has not really been there, but at last check, I think he was getting on base at over a 400 clip, which is obviously very good, kind of what he's mostly known for, I would say. But yeah, another injury for Rendon, a bummer. But hopefully it'll be a minimum-ish IL stint.
Yeah, here's hoping just for him. Like, I can't remember a player going on the injured list as often as Rendon is. I've certainly seen players miss more time. Like, we've had players miss a full season all the time. But, like, going on the injured list, I mean, it's all for separate stuff, too. Like, it's all leg adjacent. And I think there was actually, like, something with the forearm or something like that earlier in the season as well. But it all gets blurred together because of how often he goes on the injured list. I wouldn't recommend picking up cabbage in fantasy, but what I would do is get a mason jar, take some cabbage, put it in there, ferment it for, it's a pretty long process. This is just my reminder that sauerkraut is the best topping for hot dogs, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Anybody who has anything negative to say to about sauerkraut, meet me in Temecula, because we will be throwing down.
I love sauerkraut. What I love even more, if you do a little sautéed cabbage in the skillet with a little olive oil, a little salt and pepper.
Nice. Yeah.
Can't beat
it's what's great about my birthday is it's often right. Well, it's not often. It's right around St. Patrick's Day. So I usually have corned beef because it's my favorite thing with sauerkraut for dinner. And then it's like, oh, hey, St. Patrick's Day's coming up. We might as well do it again.
There you go.
Speaking of that, in no way whatsoever, Quinn Priester is coming up. What a wonderful segue.
Speaking of sauerkraut.
Yeah, speaking of sauerkraut, because Quinn Priester is going to be pitching. going to make his debut on Monday against the Guardians in that game that we just talked about. Priester was a first-round pick by the Pirates not that long ago. He is a pitcher that shows 2+ pitches, 2 average pitches, throws them mostly for strikes. Has not had the best season in AAA, if we're being completely honest, but that's some tough confines to be pitching in, and also not some great defense sometimes behind you, just so you're aware of what I'm talking about. A 4.31 ERA in 87 2/3 innings, 84 strikeouts, 35 walks, which shows that there have been some control issues as well, a 1.36 whip. I'm a fan of Priester, but I'm more of a long-term fan of him. This is a guy who doesn't turn 23 until the middle of September. I think he has a chance to be a mid-rotation starter or better. However, the Guardians can't hit, Ryan. And I have to say that in terms of talking about like a friendly debut, it's not quite AA Midland or one of those teams right there, but it's not that far away. I think there's some friendly opportunity to be streaming here.
Yeah, quite a cushy landing spot to be going to. Priester, I mean, I feel like maybe at least to this point, as you mentioned, he's still young, not going to turn 23 until September. I feel like the ceiling maybe isn't quite as high as what they once believed it could be.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, but there still might be something there, and good matchup. I think in a 15+ teams, he's worth probably picking up and rolling the dice on right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be curious to see, by the way, if the Pittsburgh Pirates give the I don't know why I said their full name. That was weird. That was like I was mad at him there for a second. Did you get that, by the way, Ryan? Did you get the Ryan Boyer when you were in trouble as a kid? Was it Ryan P. Boyer when you were in trouble, or
I never got in trouble. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's pretty great. It's good. We're good. I'm glad to have somebody with so much clemency on the podcast. It really means a lot. But yeah. And I also think you brought up before we started talking the fact that it looks like there could be a bullpen game maybe in that scenario going on.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like streaming guys against bullpen games. Real quick, is that a strategy that you like as well?
I don't know about necessarily a strategy, but I mean, if you can,
fair,
it gives a nice little boost, I think, to his potential wins outlook. I mean, the Guardians have a good rotation, as we know, and bullpen games can sometimes work out, as we also know. But I mean, if you're shooting for a win, if you're streaming Quinn Priester, I think you would much rather take that up against roll the dice against a bullpen game.
For sure. Just a couple of other quick highlights that we don't have necessarily the time to go over, but real quick, Kevin Gausman was scratched from his start. We should get more information on that in the coming hours, if not days. Clayton Kershaw is still going to be out a few weeks. By the way, once again, a reminder, don't believe anything a manager tells you about pitching ever. This is it's a prime example of the fact that Clayton Kershaw was supposed to come back right after the All-Star break. Well, bull crap. And it should have been pretty obvious that wasn't going to happen.
At first he wasn't even going to go on the IL.
That's right.
And then it said, he's going to be back right after the break.
Yes. Shohei Ohtani left his start with finger pain. It doesn't sound like it's going to be anything significant there. Maybe he gets boosted back or bumped back a start, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be serious.
And should still be able to DH. He did not come out of the game as a DH. So
yes. By the way, wonderful rule. For as much, I give Rob Manfred the making a specific rule to allow Shohei Ohtani to stay in and hit is an idea that Bud Selig never would have came up with. So kudos 100%. To you, Rob Manfred.
That's something that could have very easily been like delayed like a year. They said, we'll talk about it over the off season. Yeah. And it would have just been bull crap for a whole year regarding that. But yes, they made the right call there for sure.
Oh, and Vladimir Guerrero homered in his first at bat, but it only went like 430 feet. So once again, the home run derby is just a telling sign that things are just terrible for you. Stop it, folks. Just flip and stop with that narrative. I'm begging you. All right, we'll take a look at the players we'd like to bounce back in the second half of 2023. But first, let's take a quick commercial break. So we know the weather can impact how far a ball can fly, but we never know what all that heat and humidity or cold air is really doing to the ball. The Home Run Forecast Index gives us an easy way to determine how good or bad the air is for ball flight. The index is calculated by measuring stadium-specific weather conditions and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the most unfavorable for ball flight and 10 indicating the most favorable. There is a strong correlation between the index and the number of runs scored per game and the number of home runs hit. Games that have the highest index, 10 for the game, average over 10 runs and 2.8 homers over the course of the year. An index is created for each game so you can see what it will be in any stadium and how the weather's influence might change over the course of the game, as well as the wind direction. Now, right now, you can get access to the HRF Premium site for only $5 a month and see what the index will look like for every hour of every game. Go to homerunforecast.com now to sign up. All right, let's take a look at some second half bounce back candidates. And we decided to make things easy. Ryan's going to talk about the hitters. I'm going to talk about the pitchers. I really like the guy that you selected first overall, not just as a bounce back guy for 2024 or 2023, excuse me, but I also like him a lot in the long term. Talk about my buddy Tristan Casas.
Yeah, and in the interest of full disclosure, by the way, my computer was being a little wonky this morning, so I did not update these stats from yesterday's games. And Casas actually hit a home run, so
nice.
They're gonna be a little off, but the points are all still gonna hold true, But yeah, Casas, a guy I was heavily invested in fantasy leagues this spring. I mean, I ideally liked targeting him as my corner infielder, but I was also happy to take him as my first baseman as well. Numbers overall in the first half, not great. However, that's mostly weighed down by just a horrendous April. Going into yesterday's game, again, doesn't include his home run from yesterday. He's been in 264, 346, 442 since May 1st. Perfectly solid. Had a 286, 375, 476 slash line in June. Average exit velocity, max exit velo, hard hit rate, barrel rate, all in the 80th percentile or higher.
Nice.
Walking at a 13.4% clip. Also in the 77th percentile in chase rate. Just a well-rounded young hitter. He's a fly ball hitter. He pulls the ball a ton. He's been hitting it hard, but yet, again, going into play yesterday, only a 13% home run to fly ball rate. For a guy who hits the ball hard, hits it in the air, and pulls it, that number should be higher. And I have a feeling that as we go here into the second half and the weather warms up a little bit, that number is going to continue to go up. And it's a little anecdotal in addition to the hard numbers I mentioned, but you hear all kinds of stories about Casas as just kind of like a hitting savant, kind of in the mold of a young Joey Votto. He just kind of eats and sleeps and breathes hitting. I just kind of trust a guy like that to kind of make these improvements. And I think he was already outperforming or underperforming what his peripherals and batted ball data said he was going to do. So I really like hanging on to Casas if you already had him, and if he was dumped in your league, which he was in plenty of leagues, probably still available on the waiver wire. I think he's worth picking up for the second half.
I like that call a lot. Yeah, there's no doubt that guy has significant offensive upside. You got to, with the counting stats, you got to take in the fact that he's not going to play against left-handed pitching very often, if at all. So that is something that hurts him a little bit, but he should be in the lineup. He's in the power portion of that platoon at first base, and I think that you're going to see more pop. And I think he's such a smart hitter too. Like you said, he's such a sharp guy that I think he's going to make adjustments and be able to make those. I really like that call for 2023. My guy is about as opposite of Tristan Casas as it could be. I want to talk about Lynn. So it's weird to be talking about a guy with a 6.03 ERA as somebody that you're really excited to talk about for the second half of the season, but there's a few reasons why I'm excited. Number one, I've watched a lot of Lance Lynn starts. The eye test tells me he's been better than that. The metrics also mostly tell me that he has been better than that. Like, he has 127 strikeouts in 103 innings. His strikeout rate is in the 77th percentile. His whiff percentage is in the 84th percentile. Now, you take a look at that, and yeah, the expected batting average, expected slugging, and the barrel percentage are all well below average. Let's caution people with Savant that Savant is not predictive. It is results. It just tells you whether or not you deserve the results that you picked up. It does not tell you, based on this, that this is going to go forward. It just tells you what has happened so far, for the most part. I think that you take a look at Lance Lynn's track record and the fact that he has been so much like, this is his best bat missing season, I think, ever, Ryan. And the fact that he plays for such a crappy team, here's the thing, Ryan, I don't think he's going to be playing for a crappy team in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So here, and the best part about Lance Lynn for teams who are targeting him is he's durable. He is just going to be owed $1 million because there's no way in heck you're picking up that club option for $18 million unless, like, he just dominates at the end of the season. You're probably letting that go. I really like Lance Lynn, and the fact that I think he's going to be pitching for a contender at some point, and as somebody just pointed out, Manoah and Lynn killed my team this year. I totally get it. Like, that is two guys who have really struggled. I also thought about putting Manoah on this list. I like him as a bounce-back candidate. It just seems a little too obvious that Manoah is a bounce-back candidate, to be completely blunt with you. But I certainly think he can't be worse, and I don't think Lance Lynn could be worse from a actual run prevention category. But if Lance Lynn's still available on the waiver wire, I'm going to get him unless I just have no room whatsoever. I absolutely believe in Lance Lynn being a strong option to the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on Lynn. I mean, if you just look at the ERA and the fact that, I mean, he's, I don't know exactly how old he is, but mid-30s. I mean, you think a guy reaching that stage of his career and got an ERA over 6. I mean, I think the first inclination, without digging into things, is that he's probably toast. But the guy has 5 pitches this year with a 30% plus whiff rate. Like, yeah, he's got like as deep of a repertoire as he's ever had right now. Like, he's not throwing quite as hard, but I mean, those whiffs are like, that's a crazy number of pitches to go to. Some of them he's only using like 5% of the time, but still,
right.
And by the way, against I believe it was against your Mariners last month, the 16 strikeout, 33 swinging strikes.
It was incredible.
In that game.
It was incredible.
That's just an absurd number. Like, I'm totally with you on the Lance Lynn bounce back. He's going to be, he goes through these stretches sometimes. Even when he's put up great bottom line numbers, he'll throw in some clunkers every now and then.
Sure,
but I'm totally with you. I'm buying in on Lance Lynn, and only helps, as you mentioned, that he's probably going to be pitching for a contender in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Go ahead with your. I was just going to make the transition. I talked about a former Cardinal. Why don't you talk about a current Cardinal?
Yeah, Wilson Contreras is my next bounce back candidate. As has been mentioned ad nauseum on this podcast and other places, kind of a weird half for Wilson Contreras.
A little bit.
Just a bizarre situation he dealt with in the first half about being benched first month-ish, 6 weeks into his 5-year contract. But you look at the bottom line, or not the bottom line stats, the batted ball stats, average exit velocity, 81st percentile, max exit velo, 99th percentile, barrel rate, 76th percentile. Those are all up from last year. Currently got a 32% gap between his expected WOBA and actual WOBA.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. His whiff rate is up, even though his chase rate is down, which is a little odd. And I feel like, in addition to, this is another kind of anecdotal thing, I guess, but in addition to kind of getting past the bizarre way he was handled in the first half, I also think that the Cardinals, once they sell off some parts in the second half, which they are definitely bound to do. I feel like that might relieve a little pressure in trying to get the pitching staff back on track. And he can kind of relax a little more at the plate. And, the batted ball data, the track record. Contreras has dealt with injuries at times, and he's actually been healthy this year. So you got to consider that he might be making a trip to the IL at some point. But as long as he stays healthy, he's going to do some DHing as well. So he'll be in the lineup some days even when he's not catching. He's absolutely a guy you need to be hanging on to. I think even in one catcher leagues, and odds of a good second half for Wilson Contreras, I think, are pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, just the track record with Wilson Contreras gives me a lot of hope for him. By the way, if the Mariners could please have Paul Goldschmidt, thank you very much. I would appreciate that quite a bit. I actually think it makes an awful lot of sense, especially with Ty France having a mediocre season.
I need your Mariners to be playing well these next couple of weeks. It sounds like they might match up in a trade with my Cardinals.
It's funny. They matched up, I thought, with a trade with them in the offseason with Chris Flexen. Oopsie daisy. Drew and I talked about that one actually a lot, about how the Chris Flexen made an awful lot of sense, and now Chris Flexen is oops. But yeah, I like that call an awful lot with Contreras. Just like it's Wilson Contreras, man. It's not like he's a 36-year-old Lance Lynn that I just talked about either. There's a young guy who has a chance to be a really strong performer, and the fact that he's at catcher obviously adds to that as well. Patrick Sandoval is the pitcher that I want to talk about right now. Now, Sandoval was a guy that a lot of people, I think, targeted as a potential sleeper after having a 2.91 ERA in 2022. Hasn't gone very well this year, a 4.7 ERA. The big thing with him has been that he just hasn't missed bats. He struck out 70 guys in 85 and 2/3 innings. That's not very good. That's not even that good for like the old school baseball. That's like, it's a mediocre little total. That's terrible in the year of our Lord 2023. But his strikeouts don't add up with his whiff percentage. His strikeout percentage is in the 19th percentile. His whiff percentile is in the 68th. So there's some bad luck going on here too. And he's getting guys to swing at pitches outside of the zone, ranks a very nice 69th percentile in chase rate. He's avoiding barrels. He's avoiding hard contact. He's average exit velocity is well above average. He's had some self-inflicted damage with some walks. And also, it's the big thing with Sandoval has been zero consistency. He'll follow up 7 innings of 1-run baseball with 3 2/3 innings of about 6 runs. There have been a ton of examples like that. And again, self-inflicted damage will add up for anybody, especially with the Angels not having the best defense behind him. If he issues runners, there's a very good chance that those guys are going to score. But Sandoval's pitched fairly similar to the player that I think we saw in 2022, which, was pretty lucky. 2.91 ERA does not indicate the talent of Patrick Sandoval, if we're being completely honest with you. But I think he's closer to a 3.4, 3.5 ERA type of guy, which will certainly play. And I think that he's due for the opposite of that whole, what is that phrase called again? Digression to the mean. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the opposite of that. Regression to the mean. Yeah. Who needs words when you're doing a podcast?
Positive regression.
Positive regression, I think, is definitely going to happen for Patrick Sandoval, even while I watch the Angels once again collapse into a black hole.
Yeah, I have a hard time figuring out why his strikeout rate is down so much.
It's crazy.
Here. Like, it's just completely bottomed out.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like, the changeup is still one of the elite pitches in all of baseball. I wish he would throw it more.
Me too.
Like, he's right around like 25% usage, which is about what he was last year too. I mean, I'd like to see him throw it 50% of the time against lefties and righties.
Yeah,
I think that could really help. He's always going to be a guy who walks too many batters, and as you mentioned, not a great defense behind him. So he's going to be giving up those free passes and not a great defense behind him. It's not the greatest combo. But he's never been a guy that you really rely on for whip. I think that's going to be well below average. I think that's what we're all expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But to a lesser degree, the ERA and certainly the strikeouts are due for, as we mentioned, some positive regression
Yes, sir.
in the second half. So I'm with you on the Sandoval call. My next hitter, your boy, is he your boy? I don't know. He plays for the Mariners.
I like him a lot. I like him an awful lot.
Yeah. Eugenio Suarez, not a great first half, 39-point gap. Again, these are numbers that I did not update from yesterday's games. So they're slightly off, but the points are still going to hold true. 39-point gap between his expected WOBA and actual WOBA. That's the 12th highest in all of baseball. Average exit velocity, hard hit rate are up, but only a 10.9% home run to fly ball rate in 2023 versus 19.3% home run to fly ball rate in 2022. And that's, by the way, in generally a more favorable offensive environment in 2023. So a little odd there. You look at the career splits from the first half to the second half, 823 OPS in the second half in his career versus 770 in the first half. And Chris, you remember very well as your Mariners marched to the postseason last year. Eugenio Suarez from August on last year posted an 893 OPS with 15 home runs the final 2 months of the season. So we just saw how he's capable of going on a heater down the stretch. Mm-hmm. And even the year before, when he was still with the Reds, when he overall had a pretty bad year, he had just an amazing September.
Right.
So the track record says he's bound to heat up in the second half. He's a fly ball hitter. He's hitting the ball as hard as he always does. He's a flawed hitter, certainly. He's going to swing and miss. He's not going to hit for batting average. But I suspect that 20-plus home runs are within the range of outcomes in the second half.
Oh, yeah.
Something within that range. So if you're looking for a power boost, and certainly, I mean, a guy like Anthony Rendon we mentioned is hurt. So if you're looking for a third base replacement, I think Eugenio Suarez is a guy to look to.
I really like that call. You remember Justin Smoke?
Of course.
We used to call it getting smoked because so many of his fly balls are getting, for lack of a better term, safegoed. I know it's T-Mobile Park now, but I'm going to call it safego. He's just flying out to the warning track so often. He's also been robbed of at least 2 homers that I have seen personally. One of them a game-tying grand slam against the Marlins. That really hurt my heart. But he's definitely the power is going to be there. Slugging 373 or whatever the heck Eugenio Suarez is right now, it's just not sustainable. And again, here's the thing about players picking up that stuff. You're not picking up Eugenio Suarez's 373 slugging percentage. You're picking up what he's going to do for the rest of the season. And I will go on record, Garen, gosh dang to you, as long as he's healthy, his slugging percentage is going to be higher than 373 for the second half of the season. Way to go out on a limb there, Chris Crawford. But yeah, I really like Suarez in the second half. He's going to get a chance to play every day, no matter, even if the struggles were to happen, because he's having maybe his best defensive season certainly the best as a Seattle Mariner all of 2 seasons, but one of his best defensive seasons ever, in the well above 90th percentile and outs above average. And that power, like you said, there have been very few more consistent power hitters in baseball than Eugenio Suarez. The power is
real quickly while we're talking about the Mariners, by the way, you mentioned what happened with Julio last night. It's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So last night, Julio Rodriguez was in a collision at home plate. It was barely a collision, but it got his shoulder fairly well. And it's worth pointing out that Julio Rodriguez did not swing at a pitch that he would normally clobber in the final at bat. He did swing at some other pitches, but there was one that was like a slider that broke right into, if you guys watched the home run derby, which hopefully you did, that's where Julio Rodriguez likes the baseball, and he did not swing at that pitch. Just something to keep an eye on. Maybe if you're playing especially if you're getting this before the 6:40 p.m. Pacific time thing. Check to make sure Julio's in the lineup, just because Service sounded a little bit concerned, not crazy concerned. I don't think we're talking about an injured list stint, but something to definitely keep an eye on. Thank you for reminding me about that, Ryan.
Sure.
That is why they pay you the big bucks. And after I tell you who I'm recommending, they're probably going to recommend to take away my bucks. I'm going to recommend picking up Jameson Taillon. And I know that sounds nuttier than I don't think I should say what it sounds nuttier than. He's been absolutely terrible this year. Terrible after getting the 4-year, I believe, $72 million contract, a 6.15 ERA, a 1.40 whip, just 63 strikeouts and 71 in the third innings. And you take a look at his Savant page, and everything is bad here. Almost everything is bad. He is in the bottom 8th percentile in expected slugging, in avoiding barrels. He's well below average in strikeouts. He's below average in whiff, and his fastball velocity is in the 36th percentile. But I know that start came up against a Yankee lineup which is AAA without Aaron Judge. To be completely honest with you, like, I cannot believe how bad the Yankees lineup is. But I watched that start of those 8 innings of one-run baseball, and I was like, oh, that's the Jameson Taillon that I know. That is the Jameson Taillon that is capable of being awfully good. And look, Jameson Taillon, when healthy, has been a very reliable pitcher. I am betting completely on regression here, and positive regression, like we were just talking about. I'm not going to try to say the words that I couldn't say right in the first time. And if you look, there are some positives here. His fastball still gets plenty of spin. His curveball, plenty of spin. He's one of the better extension pitchers in baseball. I know he's in the 71st percentile. I think that's nuts. Jameson Taillon generates so much extension from that 6'5" frame. I have to think it's better than that. And the average X velocity and hard hit percentage do not suggest a pitcher with an ERA this poorly. The Cubs aren't great. I don't think there's a ton of win chances here, but I would absolutely be looking at him as a buy low candidate for the rest of the year, because Jameson Taillon is way too good of a pitcher to be this bad for the rest of 2023.
Chris, I generally love to agree with you.
So you do. Next player.
I'm not as bullish as you are.
To be fair, I don't want to say I'm bullish or bear either. What's the middle animal between a bull and a bear? Is it like a boar? Would that be what it would be?
Yeah. You're boorish.
I'm boorish.
I am bored of Jameson Taillon, that's for sure. yeah, like that little cute play on words. I don't know. I'm not as optimistic as you are.
That's fair.
He's certainly going to get better, I'm sure.
Yes.
The Cubs do have a good defense behind him, although Dansby Swanson is currently hurt. That doesn't help. It's meant more Christopher Morel at second base, which is exciting as Christopher Morel's bat can be. The glove is not as exciting, especially when you have to stick him in the middle infield. But yeah, there's going to be a certain degree of positive regression because it almost has to happen. And as you mentioned, great start going into the All-Star break. But I guess, it's not Double-A Midland, but that Yankees lineup, as you mentioned, is
so bad.
Pretty bad right now.
So bad, man. Honestly, real quick, I think
you got shut down by Austin Gomber at Coors Field yesterday, by the way.
Goodness gracious. I was just going to say real quick, I think if you wanted to make the literal argument of most valuable player, you could argue Aaron Judge deserves the MVP right now. Because look at how bad that lineup looks like without him. It didn't look great with Aaron Judge. They were certainly an average to above average offense when Judge was on the field. But look at what they look like now without Aaron Judge. Like, that is, who would have thought we would be talking about the Yankees being a streaming target on July 15th, 2023? Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Now that you bring that up, I'm surprised we haven't had a think piece coming out about that already, especially by maybe someone whose name rhymes with Han Jamin.
He's too busy crapping on Jacob deGrom to have any time to think about anything.
All right, so let's move on to my last hitter. I got
Yes.
another pitcher for you guys. K-Bear Ruiz.
Mm.
You look at the numbers on the surface. You see a 639 OPS. Not great, but already has a career high 9 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
His 20 barrels rank in the 66th percentile versus just the 13th percentile last year. He remains one of the elite contact hitters in the game. 9.2% strikeout rate for K-Bear Ruiz so far. You look at that batting average versus his expected batting average. He's hitting 226. His expected batting average is 280. That's a 54-point gap, which is the largest in all of baseball. I'm not necessarily counting on the level of power that he's shown so far to sustain. I mean, as I mentioned, already career high 9 home runs. He had just 7 last year. Not expecting 9 more in the second half or anything, but very, very easily end up with 15, 16 home runs. And I think the average is due to go way up. Quality of contact, as I mentioned, not great, but he just makes so much of that contact that he's bound to find some more holes, especially in a no shift or limited shift era of 2023. The ceiling, not super high, but I do think at bare minimum, K-Bear Ruiz could be a solid second fantasy catcher in the second half.
Yeah. I think that might be what Ruiz is for the rest of his career, is the ultimate guy that you rank like catcher 10 through 13 for the next 10 to 15 years. Like that is just, and there's nothing wrong with that. He provides real life value. He's just okay defensive player and signed to a very team friendly contract. So he's going to be getting a chance to play for the rest of his career. He's not going to be the star that we thought he was a couple of years ago. That I think that is over. We thought that K-Bear Ruiz has a chance to be among these better young catchers. There's so many talented catchers right now in baseball, Ryan. It's going to get better. I feel like I talked about this with Drew a little bit ago. It's kind of like the tight end position that we keep saying that it's going to get better, and it ultimately ends up being Travis Kelce and a whole bunch of other people. But I do think that there are going to be some positive seasons for Ruiz, and I like him as a better second half guy. Look, the same thing with Taillon. I'm just looking for some positive regression here, and that's why I'm going to recommend Brady Singer. He's been awful this year, a 5.8 ERA, and everything in his metrics suggests that he has deserved those numbers. His stuff's too good to have a 5.8 ERA, and what his stuff is way too good to have is only 77 strikeouts in 94 innings. Like, he has a very good sinker. He has a very good slider. I expect him to be much better in the second half of the season, but we're talking about it more because he can't get worse type of thing. Like, all of the pitchers I mentioned, by the way, had ERAs of the lowest one is who I'm talking about is Brady Singer at 5.8. So we're talking about regression here. And also, look, Brady Singer looked good at times last year. In fact, Brady Singer looked great at times last year. I think he's still too talented of a pitcher to be this bad. You're talking about streaming options. The same thing I'm talking about with Taillon as well, by the way. Like, I'd be looking to add him in deeper rosters, but you're talking more about, hey, when he gets the chance to face the weaker lineups. I'm obviously not starting him if he's pitching in Colorado. I'm obviously not starting him if he's facing Atlanta. Don't start anyone if they're facing Atlanta, by the way. Holy crap. Atlanta's lineup is like 1997 Seattle Mariner good. Like, they are really, really, of course, I went back to one of my favorite teams of all time because
kind of a relatively random stat, but I saw on Twitter this morning, speaking of the Braves, 4-run or more first innings this season from teams. The Braves have 12 this season, and I believe the next highest team is like 5.
That's so stupid.
Like,
That's so
stupid. they just bury you from the jump, and you just have no chance.
Oh yeah, and you know what?
Michael Kopech gave up a grand slam before he got an out last night.
Yeah, I felt bad for Kopech. By the way, Tukey looked pretty good after he came in for him. Good for him, man. That's still one of the weirdest trades, I think, in history, literally selling Tukey Toussaint in that trade. But Yeah, and also, by the way, this is one of the things I like about Atlanta is that, yeah, there's advantage to being the home team, like getting to bat second and knowing what you have to do. I think Atlanta has a massive advantage anytime they're on the road because you're having Ronald Acuna Jr. come to the plate and those guys after him. And they can bury you. Like you said, they can absolutely bury you. I'm glad we're talking about this instead of Brady Singer because I don't have a whole lot of justification for why I'm considering Brady Singer other than the fact that he can't be this bad based on what I've seen from him in the past, but even what I saw from him at the University of Florida. But yeah, that's my recommendation is that if Brady Singer is facing bad lineups, you're going to see some positive regression. Hey, speaking of pitchers, Ryan, I won't even make you defend Brady Singer. I asked you to come up with a streaming option, my friend. Do you have a good one for tomorrow?
Okay. Full disclosure. I thought we were talking about tomorrow's podcast, a streamer for Monday.
Oh, okay. My bad. My bad.
So, hey, let's just mention Quinn Priester again. I like Quinn Priester as a streamer for Monday.
There you go. I like Quinn Priester a lot as a streamer for Monday as well. That's my fault for not being more clear. I sent Ryan the message asking him to come up with a streamer about 12 seconds before the podcast, 12 to 15 seconds before the podcast. I'll just take a look real quick here while we're live recording and see if there's anybody that I like for Sunday. Last time it was really bad. Drew and I have a little competition similar to the one we had about the Mariner Cardinal series that involves taking care of duties with this here thing. I don't see anybody I'm absolutely in love with for tomorrow. And that's not a surprise because everybody's setting their rotation. You know what I mean? So there's not really streamers that are happening when you're talking about
Seth Lugo. I could maybe Tommy Henry has actually been good lately, but he's on the road at Toronto.
Yeah,
not crazy about that.
There you go. I like
Miller,
the Lugo.
Bobby Miller might have been dropped in your league because has not been great the last couple of starts, and he's going up against a Mets team that just looks absolutely lost right now. So could potentially go that route if he's available. But yeah, not a ton of great options here. Bryce Miller, by the way, it looks like he's going to be back tomorrow in the rotation.
Yes, so that
certainly pick him up and stream him if he's happens to be available. I can't imagine he is, but yeah, do that.
That's a good call. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Please follow us on Twitter. I'm at Crawford_MILB. Ryan is at Ryan P. Boyer. Make sure you're following RotoWire and RotoWire MLB and all that good stuff on all social media. And please rate and review the show if you like what you're hearing. Hit that subscribe button as well. And make sure you check out every single episode of every single day because goodness gracious knows we are doing new episodes every single day. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Ryan, I'll see you tomorrow, buddy.
All right, buddy. Take care.